Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed and we are in the Socrates and Jesus Dialogue in Heaven book because it's the best book ever. Last time we, lights are very bright. Right there. So last time we were talking about the new age of man. Let me just fix something here. Maybe just move this down a little bit. How's that? The new age of man, the dawning of the new age of man, the new age of mind, or the Hellenic mind. Now, this comes from the gift of Prometheus. Prometheus has gifted mankind with the ability to solve problems and reach our highest purpose. That gift is It's the dialectic, Ray. The dialectic. Now, Prometheus isn't a real person. It's a metaphor or an analogy to take the principles and forces of nature that we can understand if we use our mind and personify them into characters to help us remember them and talk about them. That's mythology. That's mythology. It's also theology. Isn't that interesting? The stories that we tell about the gods are metaphors, analogies to help us understand and remember and communicate an understanding and even knowledge of the principles, forces, causes of nature and existence. So, by the way, that use of the mind is the Hellenic mind. To be blocked from the Hellenic mind is to be a child of Abraham or a children of Judea, or another way of saying that, a believer. Belief blocks the use of the mind. And we talked about the fundamental forces that cause this block: fear of using the mind, fear of understanding, fear of knowing the self, and a desire or addiction to the false copies or imitations or distortions of those things, requiring courage to play the game. Follow the dialectic or Hermes, the gift of Prometheus, to be able to solve your problems and reach your highest state of self and purpose. But also share it with other people in the world as well. Make the world a better place. But of course, that's secondary. Your spiritual goals are for you primarily. Whether or not anyone cares or listens or gets on board, or it would be nice if we prevented our species from extinction, but the point is you can still do your work, even if nobody else gets on board. So, let's do a quick review and keep reading because this book is so exciting. Oh my God, what's going to happen next? Prometheus. Prometheus is far-seeing, knows the future, knows the present, and communicates with a knowledge of what benefits you. So that is an ideal way of functioning that we can learn about also through dreams. Our dreams function in this Promethean way, but we ourselves want to reach that state of being. To do so, we can what's required to function in that way is a structure of justice in reality. In other words, if there is this providential, a communication using this knowledge or sight of the present and future, and how that relates to your growth, if that exists in nature and is communicated to us providentially, there has to be that structure already in place. That structure is justice. Justice is this, for justice to exist, that is to say, our cosmos is providentially intelligible. That's necessary for justice. A providential, intelligible cosmos that we live in. We are only able to perceive that, benefit from that providence and justice, and function in that way ourselves as our own highest way of being, which we can also personify as Zeus, if we remove the oppressive hand of punishment. You have a puzzle to solve. Instead of solving it, here is some suffering on your ass. And also we have to remove the stupid idea of sin. You don't know everything as a small child, as a baby person, or a baby species, because we are still having to learn this. You don't know this. Well, it's because you suck. And you stink. And you're a small bean. You're a bad noodle. That's the idea of sin, in direct opposition to the truth of self that we are here to discover. So it's irrational and it prevents learning. So punishment and sin has to go. Barbaric. If we can do so, and we can accept that gift from Prometheus, we can awaken the Hellenic mind. Hooray for us. And all people are free to join the game. Not just a group or a sect or a team or a clan, or people who support this content creator but not that content creator. I'm in Team Hassan. I'm in Team Asmund. One of our chatters last time didn't know who Hassan was, and I expect doesn't know who Asmund Gold is. They're two content creators that are popular on streaming platforms among a certain demographic, and don't worry. One is very silly and bad, Asmund. One is doing his best to share understanding and principles of leftist principles in the world. So we actually did a video a few months ago exploring an interview that Hassan has done on the Majority Report with Emma.
What feminists want is to specifically ruin your life.
Who shares nuggets of wisdom like that. And to review everything that we'd been covering in the channel, but also to point to the fact that while it's important to share an understanding of what's happening in the world and to have a desire to make the world better, there is a kind of skill needed to do that, to make that change. What we are calling Prometheus. So, yeah, that's Hassan. Has all of my followers on Twitch that legally belong to me, and they should come and watch my videos instead. Same thing with Asmund Gold's followers and viewers. They should all watch me, because we have Warcraft noises. Listen. And they love Warcraft. But even though the believers, the authorities following the teachings of Paul, well, not his teachings, it was convenient for them, isn't it? People who want to control everyone and have everything and be the big top dude are drawn to Paul's understanding or beliefs, specifically that People should fear understanding mind and self and just have belief, bro. And do what I say, bro. Because God says so, bro. And so those people killed people who were interested in understanding. And, but Socrates points out that doesn't matter because, well, even though they were murdered and reading and understanding was stomped out at the beginning of the Dark Ages, if we have similar conditions, similar effects will arise. And what were those conditions? Mythology. In other words, if we can create a mythology similar to what they were using to awaken this Hellenic mind, to awaken the dialectic and an understanding of reality, understanding of themselves, the principles in the world that we live in, and how we navigate ourselves through those principles to solve problems and reach our highest state of being, then we can have that golden age. We can recreate the Hellenic golden age. If we set in place myths so transparent that they can communicate the principles in nature and of the mind. There's an inherent hierarchy among those principles and therefore among the gods. Just like in an anime, there is the... I don't know any of the characters in Bleach. There's usually a top guy, the main character, or usually the main character starts at the bottom. But there's like a hierarchy of people who are who represent different qualities and have interrelationships, but there's like a ranking, right? There's the leader and then his henchman, his left lieutenant. Oh, let's use One Piece. There's Luffy, then there's Zoro, and then there's Sanji, and then there's... Who'd be next? The skeleton dude? Maybe skeleton dude, etc. All the way down to, I guess, Nami? Poor Nami. Has no powers and has a weather stick. So yes, the inherent hierarchy among the principles of nature that allow us to climb through them from ignorance and belief-based thinking and imitation and image thinking through mastering, through the gift of Prometheus, that those principles and those stages can be represented hierarchically, and in stories that's the gods, that's mythology. But top down, you can understand the first principle is the one, which then gives rise to, as a kind of shadow or emanation, the ideas of oneness, unity, union, communion, wholeness. See, all of these things are various expressions of, or showing the, what's the word in the book? Showing the power and majesty. Here we go. Each generates an image of itself in the process, and the process itself imitates its own creation, its own birth. So you bring a likeness into being in your creation, and what that creation does is show the majesty and power, reveals it, of what was within it. So everything above subsumes the things below, but in its creation it shows what it has within it. And there are two kinds of creation we have on the board. Antecedent to consequence is a fancy name that means one that causes another, cause and effect, and it comes from analogies. because Socrates teaches us, we good noodles, we can then have the effect of teaching others everything that we learn and benefit from on this channel. And then these number in the hundreds of millions. And if they all subscribe to my Twitch, that means big bucks. And that's what it's all been about. Ha 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 ha. Antecedent to consequent. What precedes to what follows, or cause to effect. Some fancy new words in our to play with as we continue to read. So, one kind of creation is model to copy, and another one is the object to shadow. So there's more involved in creating a copy based on a model. There has to be someone looking at the model. There has to be the existence of the model. There has to be parts of the model. There has to be the act of creating and all of the powers and forces needed in that kind of creation. Whereas object to shadow is without those parts needed. It's immediate. Like the scent of a flower. And an example of that is how the first principle, the one self, creates oneness. Oneness is a kind of one. Unity. Oneness and unity have parts that are together. Communion, coming into communion, a loving relationship through love and logos. Wholeness, not lacking any of the parts, the whole soul that we want to, that we develop in this game. See, various diminishments or reflections of one. One, of course, doesn't need parts. In fact, if you had parts, it wouldn't be one, that would be many. But a oneness is almost like one, but with parts. Unity is everything coming together into a oneness. Communion is that activity of unifying into that unity, reflecting a oneness. Doing it in a way where you're not missing any of the parts, you have a wholeness. From that, you can have the idea of whole, allowing you to have creation of or apprehension of all kinds of wholes, even a whole coffee mug or a whole chicken. See how it emanates down? Isn't that interesting? We can understand creation itself. And everything participates in one. Necessarily. For it to be a thing. And that also means we can do the same thing with another highest term that we get from Socrates is good. So we could do a similar thing. Goodness. Maybe you can play with ideas like excellence, beauty, justice, and you can create your own hierarchical arrangement of emanation from model to copy or object to shadow or antecedent to consequent if you want to be fancy and impress everyone at the coffee shop. Metaphysics. Now, isn't that interesting? You are in that. That's you. Apparently, the first term is you, the real you, the one or good self. But you, even as a soul, in this lifetime, going through the process of discovering that these things exist and they exist for you, by you, so that you can discover you. You're in that emanation, going through that return, the upward movement we looked at before, anagogic. Apollo, our philosophy that we do here, Aphrodite, how cool it is to inspire us to do it. The two together coming to Hermes, the gift of Prometheus, that allows us to anagogically move. That's the anagogic gods. The anagogic gods. Gods are metaphysical personifications of these forces that exist in reality. And the anagogic triad means upward moving. These are the three fundamental forces we use to move up to know ourselves. Apollo, our reading. Aphrodite, how cool it is that everything comes together into a wholeness, into a oneness, into a union. How cool it is that we can have even communion between things. Love and logos in ideal relationships. To reach the top of the pyramid, the hyparxis or fullest flowering of the anagogic triad, Hermes, which represents the dialectic, which you can tell in a different way as saying, so you can tell a story about how these three are the main characters in a kick-ass anime and rise through the levels of reality to fight, to defeat villains along the way and reach new masters along the way to become the king of the pirates, or the Hokage, or the Soul King of the Soul Reapers. Whatever. See, it's a standard. Or to become, what does Goku want to become? The best fighter? I don't know. It's the structure of storytelling. But you can also tell us a similar story representing the dialectic as the gift of Prometheus from the gods to mankind to allow us. See how the two different stories speak to different aspects of the same thing? One in our reading, one in, or an upward movement or anagogic movement, and the dialectic as a gift from the gods, from Prometheus, the downward, giving us what we need to go upward. And it's all you. Isn't that interesting? None of this is belief either. These are all necessary principles. Necessary. There's our idea of justice, of necessary order that has to exist, that you can understand Apollo. And when you do put it together, you see not only is it necessary, Apollo, but it's beautiful. That's how you can see it's true. It's necessary rationally, and it's beautiful that it comes together into a unity. And not only that, you can test, see, even though it's necessary and beautiful, it's still a likely hypothesis or if. But the thing about this is you don't have to believe anyone. You've seen it. You've seen how it fits together, but in that we just described, but also you verify it. That's Hermes. You verify if this is actually the anagogic movement and if the emanation from the one or good self through various levels of holes. More holes, the better.
Do a poggers. I'm cute. Like, you've been a bad little girl. The more holes, the better.
I need to give more holes, the better its own soundboard button so I don't have to go through a bunch until I get the right one. You can experience it. And apparently that's the purpose, because Apollo, as we go through this, we focus on our goal, Zeus, or as we defined as Socratic excellence. After going all the way to the top, turn around and help others through that process. So you can experience it anagogically and emanating. You don't have to believe anyone. Isn't that cool? Especially since belief is not true. It's just imitation of authority figures. And belief has to get you to reject understanding, knowledge, and experience. And belief is the cause of human problems. We don't need it. That's the awakening of the Hellenic mind. Isn't that neat? I think it's neat. So that's Zeus. So you can represent our ultimate goal as Zeus. But here is it spelled out so as Socratic excellence. What's Socratic excellence? Socrates says, oh, we can use Plato's own test. Once you've ascended through that hierarchy of pirates, kings that you've conquered to become king of the pirates, or that anagogic movement through those principles and those levels of reality, so you know the true realities, and then beyond that, the good, or the one self, the one or the good at the top, and you go back down or return to the cave, the physical world of peoples, you'll see 1,000 times better and know what the images people are and what they're actually images of, because you know the real things. And you recognize that people's images are what they take for reality, and they permeate people's thoughts and dreams. And if you can recognize this and use the dialectic, you can see how mind communicates to each through thoughts and dreams, and to prepare themselves for their own vision and ascension. And in doing that, you are being providential. So that's excellence, Socratic excellence. It's also Zeus, to be yourself the source of all that exists, the one or the good self. Guided by divine wisdom, there's your knowledge and understanding. No need for believing someone else. Even if they have a funny hat, like this, with a cross on it, or they have another funny hat with the little tassels on the side, or they have another funny hat because they're in a robe and they're ancient monks. So it doesn't matter what hats people wear. I have a hat. So what? Doesn't matter what hats they wear and how funny they are. You can use knowledge and understanding together, because understanding is what you developed to make that ascent, and knowledge is what is the levels of vision that you gain along the way, till you go beyond even that to the self. So you use that divine wisdom, knowledge and understanding together to take care of all things. Living, all of us good noodles, us peeps, peeping it up on planet Earth, but also non-living things. What about trees and plants and things and rocks and our planet? Now you might make the case that everything is living, even the planet. That fair enough. But even things we consider non-living, like trees and plants and air and water, why not take care of that too? Or we could destroy all of that to make people sad and desperate, so we can extract their money from them. That's option B. That's the one we're currently using. It's called capitalism. Destroying people, destroying water and trees and plants, so you can manipulate their money into your pocket. Very silly and short-sighted and stupid. That's why option A, the Hellenic mind, what we are doing here, is a good one. So from the one to oneness to unity, communion, wholeness. Here we go. So that's a metaphysical view. Okay, so by the way, you can create a view of the one into being, which is that shadow kind of creation, and from being into the soul. We have that on the board. There we go. That's you. That's the real you. The one or the good. Beyond qualities. Or at least beyond the sorts of qualities that we've ever experienced through thought and experience in this dimension anyway. That's a deeper mystery. So this is the thing that you can only describe with negatives. Everything that we've understood and experienced is the emanation or the expression of the power and majesty of what's subsumed inherently within the self. So its first emanation or creation is into the idea of the good or being, oneness, from one to oneness. And that we describe with all of the greatest terms: beauty, justice, wholeness, whole and part together, and eternity in one, eternity, everything all at once, infinity and one together. These are, we literally use the highest use of language to describe this experience. Therefore, if it's a diminishment or a copy, a consequent of the antecedent, then its consequent or cause has to be higher in majesty and power than it. Therefore, in principle, we have to use negatives to describe it. Now, there is a kind of way we use negatives once we understand that everything we've been using up until now to understand believers and understanders and knowers have been a relationship between the pairs. In other words, whole and part are pairs that necessarily linked in experience. Parts are defined as parts of a whole. Whole is defined as nothing, no parts missing. You've got your whole watch when you've got no parts of the watch missing. So they're interrelated in their definition. Everything you've experienced is a part or a whole. Everything you've thought, part and whole. We have a list that we've been developing. Whole and part, same and different, equally so. Different means it's not, there's nothing the same as it around. I am different at this party because nobody else is wearing a pirate costume. But then somebody walks into the party with a pirate costume and they are the same as me. See how they're interrelated? Limit and unlimit. In time and out of time. And that's what we've been using because we can recognize that the 5 stages of development that we've got are defined as how do these pairs interrelate? How do these principal forces of cognition, existence, and experience, everything. Well, it counts for everything. It's universal. Everything. Even if you go to a different planet, whole and part, same and different, like and unlike. Even if it's 1 billion years in the future and 1 billion light years away, these will still apply. That's why it's nothing to do with belief or authority. And it's why it's by definition the learning we're here to do, because it will always apply. Unlike money, you can't die and take your money with you or your fame. I have 100,000 Instagram likes. See? This is why we're better than Hassan and Asmongold, because they have all of the tens of thousands of followers. But joke's on you. You can't take them with you. I'm being a bit silly. But we have fun. So these are the pairs that we've been using to define the 5 classes of cognition. The strict dualists, modern democrats, they don't have a connection, disconnected. They are only apart. They are only different. There's no sameness. There's no unlimited or freedom. There's no whole. There's no principles. So they compromise with fascists. Or there's no unity within their ranks. Someone like Mumdani, who actually wants to care for people in New York, the Democrats are all attacking him. Boo! No unity, no principles of caring for people. We want to just do our own thing and make our own money. Disconnection. By definition. Again, 1,000,000 years in the future, 1,000,000 light years away, you'll find people in that 5th category. 4th is a conflict between them. They are parts who hate the whole. They are people who are different who hate people who are the same. You have to accept limits so you can never be free. Believers, fascists, MAGA, Nazis, Abrahamic religious followers. 4th category. The cause of problems. The conditions and the causes of problems. Again, it's not picking teams, not because I don't like them. It's literally the principles of perception, thought, and existence. Or the self-logos, the selfers. Oh, first comment today is a spam bot. Makes me a little bit sad. But we keep going anyway. And the 3rd category is a providential. Now we've got into Zeus, Providence, Prometheus, Justice. A necessary, rational, beautiful order of reality that can be used, expressed providentially through the dialectic and mythology to benefit all the good noodles as we climb. That's understanding. The 3rd. The massive difference. Modern democrats. Believers. Conflict between everything internally and externally. That's why they're always hating. That's why Fox News is always hate. And who do we kill next? This week, the Fox News presenter said, maybe we should kill the homeless. No, they said we should kill the homeless. Donald Trump said we should kill all the left. All the understanders. We should kill them. Yes, that's why we're in this predicament. 3rd is providential, rational, caring connection between the 2. The 2nd is, knowledge. Being, here we go. Being, or the good, or reality, which is the 2 unified as a oneness. So here is our idea of oneness. So what we've formerly been using the self-logos, or the selfers, these parts of rationality, to understand. The 2nd, what it means to be knowledge, what knowledge actually is. That quote from Socrates, I'm wiser than the other jabronis in Athens because, not because I know nothing, like your grandma will say on Facebook, because I know what knowledge is. I know what it is, and these people think they know stuff that can't be known because they don't even know what knowledge is. That's the oneness. So now we have these new metaphysical terms in our reading. We can go back to understand the 2nd. By the way, 3, 2, and 1 are the good ones. They have self and logos and ousia. They have self and ousia and logos. Different expressions of excellence. Logos, the rational order of cosmos. Ousia, the ability to turn around and know ourselves as pure being. The nature of the 2nd, and self. These are all expressions of self, and we have to be seeking to know the self to move upward. So believers hate logos, hate ousia, and hate self. By definition, it's how you're taught. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to believe some guy with the funny hat. So now we can say, hey, this idea of oneness, which is the first creation from the one into oneness that we just read, we can say, oh, these self-logos pairs that we've used division for 5, conflict between them for believers, providential connection for understanders, now we can understand knowledge is the oneness of them together. The highest kind of whole with the highest kind of parts. What would that be? Well, all of the parts. The highest kind of whole would be no part missing of everything that includes all of the parts always forever. Everything All at Once is the name of the movie that came out recently. For all differences completely the same, or completely the same as yourself, including all variation or difference. By the way, that's what we have to do as species. So this is our model for justice. If you want a just world, there has to be a sameness in humanity. Bit messy on the board, isn't it? But you also have to have diversity. That's evolution, right? We have to account for everyone's differences and diversity, but also have a sameness. That's the Hellenic mind, by the way. That's the new way of being. But anybody different than me is bad. I need to fight them. No. The opposite. A species that doesn't allow for variation within its evolution doesn't evolve. And a species at war with itself also goes extinct. So, this understanding of whole and part, same and different, like and unlike. What else do we have? Unlimited and limit, motion and rest, rest and motion, in time and out of time. Because that second level, this is the significance of having a mythology, is you can have a whole bunch of terms that you can now put together. That second level of knowledge, that's our cognitive level, knowledge, understanding, belief, and a massive difference. This is cognition, but now we can tie in existence. Here, the one gives rise to being, gives rise to soul. So each can help us understand the other. So this is so that's epistemology, how we think. Ontology, what exists. The one to oneness. Oh, so now we can understand the way these parts relate is a oneness. But didn't we also say this is where we get justice from? Oh, so now we understand what justice is. The model of justice itself for a just world and just societies. It is to have a oneness or a unity, which is the reflection from the one, unity or oneness, of sameness and difference. We have to be like ourselves in the highest possible way. What's the way we are like ourselves in the highest possible way? Because remember, we also looked at experience, so we can tie in experience too. How do we experience it? It's expressed through positive terms. While the one or the good or the one is expressed in negatives, the idea of the good or being or knowledge is expressed through positive terms. Pure beauty, ultimate reality, always the same, unchanging, luminous light of being, insight into the meaning of existence. So these are the positives. So what's justice? Well, take each of these self-logos pairs and use the highest positives, but have them in communion or unified or oneness. See how we're weaving it together? The descriptions of their experience, the cognitive function or epistemology, knowledge, ontology or how we understand levels of reality, creation, how the one creates oneness, unity, bringing them all together, we can use it to understand each of them. So justice, which is the same thing, which is also in there, because justice is one of the words to describe it, we can say is the highest possible positives experience as a oneness, ontology or creation of these self-logos pairs, knowledge, cognition, epistemology. Therefore, the greatest kind of sameness allowing for the greatest kind of difference. What? So that's your question. What would be the highest kind of sameness? Are we the same because we all have toes? Sure, but that's not the highest kind of sameness. Are we all the same because we have a soul? Oh, getting closer, but that's just here. That's still a reflection of something else. Are we all the same because we all have mind? Oh, imagine if we all realized we were the same mind and we don't have to have divisions of belief because knowledge is the same. Is that a kind of positive sameness? Not the highest, because we've got a massive difference as 5, belief as 4, understanding as 3. Oh, we could unify ourselves in understanding. Isn't that the Hellenic mind? What about this number 1? Are we all the same because we're all self? What about the highest kind of differences? Differences in belief? Boo. What about different expressions of understanding, knowledge, and self? Is that the highest kind of difference? Every single different self matters. Every single dream is unique. By the way, are dreams an expression of this principle of justice and providence? Because all dreams are the same in the highest kind of way. What's the highest kind of way? Oh, the highest kind of way is providence. A caring or providential, divine, intelligible order of our whole cosmos. That's the highest kind of sameness. That's also in every dream. Every dream is a providential expression of divine wisdom, most appropriate for you and where you're at your level of development. That's the highest kind of way. Dreams are the same, but also no dream is the same. In content, they're all unique. Is that uniqueness that every single dream is different? And think of the 8 billion people. Think of how many human beings who have ever existed. Think about the fact they get 5 dreams a night. Think about the fact that no 2 dreams are ever the same. Would that be the highest kind of profound uniqueness or difference? So do dreams give us an insight into the nature of justice that now we can understand by unifying cosmology, metaphysical creation, ontology, and epistemology? How we think, how we experience, how creation unfolds? Can we unify all of that together to understand justice? And is this understanding of justice always true for everyone? Every culture, every planet, every time period? So we've got a model of justice. Hooray! Isn't this fun? I think it's fun. And by the way, if these sameness and difference, whole and part, unlimited and limited, etc., are disconnected in differences, in conflict with believers, providentially linked in understanding, the most positives unified in a oneness as knowledge, then what the heck is, if this is knowledge, which is itself a shadow of the one self or the good self, how are these two terms related if we've already got to the top? We've got the greatest whole and the greatest parts and the greatest sort of oneness. What's left? Because that's still the second. That's still a copy. It will show us the... Can I release first? It will show us the... It will show us the majesty and power of what caused it. So in that understanding of justice or experience of knowledge or level of reality of the idea of the good, we are experiencing bliss and everything all at once and pure knowingness and all that sort of wonderful, like literally the greatest use of positives. But it's just an expression of the inherent majesty and power that exists in a higher way in the self. Isn't that interesting? So how then do we understand how we cognitivize that stage above knowledge? That's the mystery. In what way do we know the self that transcends even knowledge? If this is the greatest experience, what the heck is that? If this is knowledge, and the two, knowledge and understanding together as wisdom, what's the kind of knowing beyond wisdom? Because that's our goal, that's Zeus. See how we benefit along the way? Don't we benefit by gaining understanding? Don't we benefit by gaining knowledge? Don't we benefit by unifying the two in wisdom? But even that's not the end. See, it's winning all that we're winning all along the way.
It's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win.
Win. See, we always win on this channel. We always be winning. We're like Charlie Sheen. We are the same as Charlie Sheen because he's always winning, apparently, famously. But we're different. In the greatest possible way, we are different from Charlie Sheen. But in the greatest way, we are the same as him in that we are winning.
It's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-
So everything that we just went through might sound a bit complicated. I mean, like when we had experience, we had understanding the parts, understanding cognitive function, understanding metaphysical creation, all that we put together to understand what justice is. So you can make it a little bit simpler by assigning gods to each of those principles and tell a story how this guy relates to this guy who relates to this guy. To every one of those parts that we put together, you could represent that entire conversation we had in a myth, in an episode of your anime. Just make each of those principles characters and then have them do a drama. And have magic powers, because that's cool. And fun. And we need that too.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder?
That's mythology. And Socrates says if we create that, if we make that kind of mythology, what we are doing is putting together the same conditions by having these stories that represent that conversation we just had, that will create similar effects. What's the effect? The dawning of the new age of the Hellenic mind, which is the highest way we can awaken a common spirit. There's our highest kind of sameness that brings into being a culture of the mind, not a culture of hate, not a culture of my belief is better than your belief, or my daddy can beat up your daddy, my mummy's Christian beliefs are better than your mummy's Jewish beliefs. That's stupid. Don't be stupid. A culture of the mind, so a highest kind of unity. Justice. Okay, and by the way, that entire thing we just described, the principles put into a mythology to bring the higher kind of unity that benefits yourself individually and the whole, that's also represented in the highest kind of way in dreams. Who can say man cannot ascend to the intelligible if dreams disclose their secrets? Not only do dreams disclose the particulars or the parts, or definitions, it is itself a demonstration. That's exactly what dreams are, what we just described. So the conditions of creating this kind of mythology in our culture that will have the same effect, bringing into the world the new dawn of reason, the Hellenic mind, the new way of being, philodianoia, is already in place in dreams. Therefore, if we can show that dreams can be understood, that is the new dawn of reason. So there's two things on the table given by Socrates in the book that can create the conditions for what we need for man's well-being, solving problems, and ultimate enlightenment. Always. Because it's protected. Because we have Athena, Ares, and Hestia keeping it together. They're the protective triad. See? Has to be something that will keep it together. Not just a flash in the pan. The preserving gods. Ares, Athena. Ares will preserve it in our physical world, in our culture. Athena keeps it together in our minds. And Hestia is the source of all wholes. That's the protective or preserving triads. So those are the two things on the table that can create the conditions for this, our own individual and cultural new age. Mythology and dreams. But the language of Hellenic myths fall on deaf ears in the land of Judea, which is a brilliantly beautiful way of saying, if you're a believer, it's going to smack you in the face and you're not going to pay attention. Nightmares. We are living a cultural nightmare, which is the providential messages of justice, of the mind being sent to us are falling on deaf ears because we live in the land of Judea. We live in a culture of belief. So we're not using understanding, the gift from the gods of Prometheus, the dialectic, to get to unpack the presence of our dreams and create these myths that will allow us to learn a new way of reasoning that challenges the mind to find forces in nature and among mankind that can be summarized into images and forms consistent with and representative of these higher forces we've been talking about. That's the myths we want, but what happens? People who take them literally will be held back. Those people we call barbarians, people who don't use their... Calm down. Barbarians, people who don't recognize, for whatever reason, or belief, culture, family upbringing, they don't realize that these myths, these stories of the gods are mythological. They're representative. They're not literal. There's no literal Zeus and literal Prometheus who had a gift to a literal mankind representative. I am the ambassador for mankind. Pleased to meet you, Prometheus. Oh, what a lovely gift of dialectic. Now mankind can be saved from our ignorance. That didn't actually happen. Oh, Adam and Eve. Okay. Adam and Eve were people who did. No, of course not. Use your brain. Dinosaurs didn't exist because the words of the book were literal. Come on. Now, I'm not saying the Bible is mythology. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying, well, what we've already seen is Jesus apparently used parables, which would have been myths, that he said they needed to unpack if they were to uncover the state of mind of heaven, or what we call being, or the kingdom of God, which we might represent as Zeus, potentially, considering he was influenced heavily by this Hellenic thinking. But every single person is at war between their belief and that understanding until you become free. So all of the people who spoke for him, Paul, Matthew, Luke, John, Mark, and of course the church, and of course George Bush and Donald Trump, who claimed to speak for Jesus, which is fucking insane, but that's how divorced from truth believers are. They're all doing the same thing, finding an opportunity to project the beliefs that they either knowingly or unknowingly want to prove or express or make true. That's barbarianism. Oh yeah, it's a literal God, and he also says I'm the best, and I'm the best boy. And also he says that people who don't look like me are the bad people, and we are the chosen ones. Yes, we are the chosen people, we are. That's why the rapture will take us. Everyone, it's always the same. It's so obvious that it's painfully fucking stupid. Yes, everyone thinks they're the chosen ones. Everyone thinks their beliefs are the right beliefs. That's why I always laugh when people say, I'm a realist. They're saying, I agree with all of my own stupid ass opinions. Of course you agree with your own fucking opinions, you idiots. That's why they're beliefs. That's why you're blocked. We're not interested in what you carry in your brain from childhood, unless we're doing midwifery to remove your blocks. We're interested in what's real, of reality for always. To know the true nature of self, mind, reality, knowledge, understanding, and the good. That's the new age. That's what it means to be rational and mature. So without a mythology in the way we've been describing it, or taking the myth literally like a baby brain mush-brained mushhead, that's called being a barbarian, according to the Hellenics. A barbarian doesn't have a mythology or takes them literally. That's being a stranger to the gods, or not real gods, of course, that's the irony, a stranger to reason, principles, causes, thinking, logos, being a good noodle. So we have good noodles and we have barbarians, which are bad noodles. No, they are not even noodles. Barbarians are savages. They wouldn't know how to eat a noodle. They do that thing where they try and put a noodle in their nose. That's how crazy they are, to be a stranger of the gods. Jesus said, hey, by the way, I like how you Greeks I have often heard how you Greeks call many people barbarians, but you've also borrowed from other countries and polished them with principles. That's what we've been talking about, how we share this. If a lot of people know about the story of Theseus slaying the Minotaur, why not use that as a vehicle to talk about what we're learning here? If people know about Spider-Man, talk about how Spider-Man wins the day. I've been talking about anime. Because anime is fun and cool and exciting. Much of your profound thought has been drawn from Egypt. So even earlier than the Hellenic Greeks, like I think Socrates was around 300 BC and like Homer maybe 1000 BC. So Socrates wasn't a one-off. He had Diotima, a lady master of the Logos. Someone who'd reached this level. Parmenides, 60-year-old bloke, talked to a young 20-year-old-ish Socrates. We have that book. Homer, the story of Achilles in the Iliad, is someone going through midwifery and dream analysis on his own, by the way, self-midwifery. He has an illumination experience like Jesus had on the Mount, but Achilles was in battle. He had that knowledge experience. Responded to it differently, the opposite to how Jesus did. Jesus got into his beliefs. Achilles went on a journey to discover his family beliefs, address his parents, and say, I'm not part of this crap anymore. Yes, I know you are a god, mum, but that's a mythology. Everyone thinks their family is the right family. Everyone thinks their family is chosen by God. It's easy. Just look across the street. Look at your neighbors. Look at the kids living next door. They think their way of being is right, and they'll fight you to the death sometimes if you challenge it. That's how fucking stupid it is. But you go, well, of course your parents are. They're alcoholics, or they're crazy, or they're in a cult, or... You don't even have to look far to realize this. Look across the street or next door. Anyway. But you can use the mythology they have and polish it up with principles, and it's through that you can create the arts. So art has to benefit, doesn't it? Drawn from Egypt, bring others to your way of being and reasoning. That's a formidable task that you set for yourself. How do you share this? If sharing it is part of the game. So yes, I was saying, even before the Hellenics, the ancient Egyptians seem to have this way of being as well. So we call it the perennial philosophy. Back before Aristotle said, it's all a mass of difference. It's all just different opinions. So Kant's philosophy and Hegel's philosophy. We have this sound drop.
Have you read Brand at all? Have you read Nagel? What about Scanlon? Have you read Scanlon or Scruton or Edmund Burke? Have you read C.S. Lewis? Have you read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Have you read Immanuel Kant? So you know Flicht.
What has this got to do with Bob's Burgers?
But nothing to do with Bob's Burgers, Sam Cedar from the Majority Report. It's got everything to do with the Aristotelian bastardization of philosophy into a mass of differences, stage 5. So when we hear the word philosophy, we think it's that, which is why it's one of the reasons why it's a formidable task to share this. No, there's just one philosophy. You sounds like you're a fundamentalist. Obviously, there are many philosophies. There's Kant and Hegel, and there's Flicht, apparently. And you're just a fundamentalist to say your one's the right one. There is no right one. Just like the modern Democrats say there is no justice and there is no fundamental principle. Yes, just let everyone do their own opinions. That's freedom. You're just a bigot. No, that's not it at all. That's the perspective from someone in 5, massive difference. They are trying to make sense of it because people in 5, people who have at that stage of a massive difference, no model and understanding, are people who have left 4. They were believers. They think everything is just about belief. They grew up religious and now they're atheists. They think there is no divine. There is no metaphysical principles. There is no enlightenment experience. There is no ultimate self. because I grew up in my religion and I realized that it was crazy and irrational. In other words, they don't pick up the reason and experience, logos and ousia, that was not present in religion or their family or the right wing or the MAGA. You go, oh, well, if people who claim truth don't have logos or reason and they don't have direct experience of the divine, it's all just bullshit, then there isn't a truth. If no logos and no ousia is truth for belief, then there mustn't be truth. No, they got to ass backwards. Believers don't speak for God. They're liars. They're stupid. They're ignorant. It's not that there's no truth. It's that you don't have truth without logos and ousia. So that's the movement from 4 to 5. A mass of different people don't start there. It's an effect. Whether you like it or not, your family and the religions of our culture and the fact you grew up in a family means if you just leave belief, you've gone down here. Because belief still affects you. The effect of fear of 3, understanding, 2, mind and ousia, and 1, self, still permeates. You can't just magic away the effects of your upbringing. That's why we need dream analysis and midwifery. Can't just magic problems away. You've got to understand them properly. If you do, you can go from 4 or 5 to 3. Understanding. That's the dialectic following the logos, the activity of philosophy. Understanding allows you to reach knowledge, allows you to reach wisdom when you apply understanding to knowledge, and allows you to go beyond it to the self. And that's Zeus. That's us as happy Zeusians. Happy with our beards and our lightning bolt. Oh, what happened? That's us. But remember, we said metaphysically, as the one creates knowledge or oneness, which shows the majesty and power inherent in it, and likewise, it turns about and uses itself as a model to create a copy of the physical world that we can participate in through understanding. In the other direction, each higher level subsumes the former. So you don't lose understanding with knowledge, and you don't lose the two together when you reach the self. Understanding is a reflection of knowledge in time, which is a reflection of the self in eternity. Meaning the self has to subsume wisdom, the two together, in its way of being. Now, there's no place for belief in a massive difference because that's below the line of logos and ousia, allowing us to have that state of self, us as happy Zeus noodles, and be able to carry our development or art from Prometheus that we've been developing along the way, so that we can be the source of all that exists, the one or the good, while guided by that divine wisdom through which we can providentially take care of all things. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win-win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win. So, that's how we can share it. To be like Zeus or be like the Dream Master ourselves and create a mythology, or use the mythology or the stories that are in different cultures and just inject them, polish them up with principles and metaphysics. And that allows us to bring people to this way of being and reasoning. Reasoning itself. A formidable task that we have, says Jesus, but what else are you going to do? What else are you going to do? Other than know and show the self. And if sharing it is part of our upward journey, because the dialectic has 4 kinds of expressions, matching the dialectic itself, by the way. I realize I'm repeating myself for anyone who's watched the whole thing, but watched every single video, but it's worth repeating and reminding us. The dialectic, the gift of Hermes, the gift from Prometheus. In our reading, Apollo is applying it to what's true. Self itself. Applying it to what's false, using that in our highest kind of functioning as a midwife. Removing our false beliefs, midwifery. Both, others to others. Applying it to our dreams, all of the other dreams that we have. And of course, the 4th is sharing it. For others, so this was our puzzle. If we've already recognized there are 4 stages of, 4 expressions of the dialectic that we need all of them. Our question was, well, hang on a second. If we've seen there 4 and it's likely that it will itself be an expression of the dialectic. A dialectic in definition and in functioning. You need both. To know and show the self. So, how are these 4 expressions or 4 aspects of the art, how do they fit with the dialectic? Well, we've just read that the formidable... See how this is how you learn as you go. You take it with you. Isn't it fun? It's truly a formidable task to share with others so that what we have learned, others can relate back to the Hellenic mind or the self-logos. So you can say the self-logos itself, self-to-self definition, you understand in philosophy, Apollo. You can use that dialectic or self-logos to others to address what is other than the self-logos, our false beliefs that block us. That's called philosophical midwifery, the demonstration of what we have defined. Right? You can use that kind of functioning to others other than the self-beliefs or divisions, expressions of your problems or false beliefs, others to others. That's in every single dream is going to be another. Every single dream is different, but every single dream will express your problems or give you insights into the truth. That's both. And if you master that, you can yourself be like the dream master. So this application of the dialectic or self-logos that you have seen in every division in dream analysis, you can unify that into a single way of being, like dreams. That's synthesis. A unified other that if you share can allow others to relate back to self, relate back to what's the self in this dialectic, the self-logos or the dialectic. By sharing this yourself as a mythology, as Socrates has said, is if we can create this, it is creating the conditions for the new age, the dawn of reason. Or allow others to themselves relate back to the subject. So that subject we defined, we were able to function with to solve our problems. We were able to, that's demonstration, function with at all times, in particular our dreams, that's division. And that functioning ourselves, if we integrate it, will allow others to then see the effect of that, benefit from the effect of that, and then return back to self. That's mythology. Therefore, our question, How do these relate to the dialectic? We've got a nice working hypothesis for. Mythology is how others can relate back to the self. That we understand itself in philosophy and we use as a midwife, and we also do in dream analysis. The 4 categories of the dialectic to express the 4 expressions of the dialectic, and this is the one we're focusing on right now. The formidable task of sharing it, to be like a dream master ourselves, which is providential or Zeus-like because it allows others to be benefited too. It's a win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win. Got my coffee? Got my coffee. Got my coffee, and let's get reading. Bring in our players. Socrates. Yes. Oh, wait. Go back, because we had that expression. The language of Hellenic myths. This is Jesus' voice. He's a gentle soul. He has... When I was at school, we had pictures of Jesus cuddling a little lamb. And there were children happy around Jesus. The language of Hellenic myths fall on deaf ears in the lands of Judea. Whoop. Yes. To allegorize myths mean you learn a new way of reasoning. It challenges the mind to find forces in nature and among mankind that can be summarized into images and forms consistent with and representative of higher forces. It does another thing of importance. It holds back those who would take the myths literally. Dum-dum mush brains. That's not in the book. A people without mythology we call barbarians, or strangers to the gods. Jesus says, have some coffee. That's a bit hot. Whoops. True it is. I have often heard how you Greeks call many people barbarians. Your people borrowed from many countries and polished them with principles. And created through them all the arts. Much of your profound thought seems to have been drawn from Egypt. And that makes us akin in that regard. Remarkable it is. You do see the tasks of you Greeks and all the good noodles on this channel to bring others into your way of being and reasoning, don't you? Truly, it is a formidable task you set for yourselves. Yes. But we are up to the challenge. Hooray. Yay. Socrates, this is where we're up to. What lies behind bringing man from a barbarian existence, living a brutal and short life? Wow. To the flowering of a culture of excellence. Wow. brilliant is this language. Amazing. Right? Isn't that what we're doing? Do we live a brutal existence, a barbarian existence? Living a brutal and short life, our species, many of the people that we are murdering or enslaving? What's the other alternative? A culture of excellence, which is our own flowering. It's not foreign to us. Alright, anyway. What lies behind bringing man from a barbarian existence, living a brutal and short life, to the flowering of a culture of excellence is... Oh, that's the question. What is it? Is there a need to explain this transformation? Greek mythology offers a way to gain insight into the problem. It can be said that mythology is the collective dream of a people. Ooh. The same way of understanding the one follows for the other. Consider, one of these gods of the Hellenes recognized the promise in man and stole the arts and fire from heaven to turn man around, and in doing so to come to know himself. That man, he saved man and suffered for his theft. There is no original sin here. See? So this is Prometheus stealing fire from the gods to give us the dialectic to allow us to know ourselves, our divine psychic nature, and the transcendently noble, beyond even the divine nature of ourselves. Why would we want to be ignorant of that? So we can kill non-believers so mummy and daddy feel proud for us being a good Christian or a good Jew? Disgusting savagery. But unless you're in it and it feels like it's real, that's why you need courage. There is no original sin here, no Garden of Eden with its account of how evil trumps good. We have a victory and kinship between man and the gods. Why teach people to be in opposition to themselves and the divine? Don't eat from the tree of knowledge, you'll be a god. But the devil wins and tricks you. Oh, and we're going to lie about that story and say Eve tricked Adam when she didn't. So women can be abused for being the cause of sin for thousands of years. We can do better. Here we have a victory and kinship between man and the gods. Let us turn to sacrifice. Prometheus taught man how to sacrifice. When sacrificing, always sacrifice what is not... Always separate what is not essential to one's life into a pile, and into another what sustains and provides for one's health and growth. Disguise the one to appear as the other. Offer what does not benefit you to the gods, and call your friends together for a banquet of food and words from the other. What you don't need and does not benefit, you offer to the god. Or we could say, do not do what you hate, but sacrifice what you hate to the god. Striving for excellence in the arts means a willingness to sacrifice what blocks one from attaining it. Sacrifice your problems to the gods. Wow.
Wow.
Sacrifice your problems to the gods. Those who participate in this Hellenic culture naturally gain a way of thinking and being that separates them from all others. The quest for excellence is open to all. I thought the Jews were the chosen people. I thought the Christians were the ones that get to be raptured. I thought the Muslims were the ones who get to the Holy Land. I thought the Mormons were the ones who were actually... I thought the Presbyterians were the ones. I thought that the... No. No division and conflict. In excellence. Those with a and all of that division and conflict we would put into a pile and burn and sacrifice to the gods, because it doesn't help us. Those with a kinship and ability to master an art gain access to a different way of being. Pick up an art that you have a kinship for, an ability to master, and you might awaken a different way of being. Becoming a Hellene is open to male and female. What? Jordan Peterson told me that, Ben Shapiro told me, that Charlie Kirk told me, that Donald Trump told me, that Netanyahu told me, that all of these fascists and dictators and disgusting scumbag human beings told me that women were less than men. Their brains are smaller or something. Something to do about childbirth makes them crazy. Bollocks to that. So that would also go into that pile of things that we sacrifice. Sacrifice that sexist belief that is a tool to use to get women to think that they're not good enough to stand up to oppression, and to enslave men by saying, hey, just follow us and we'll give you someone to hate on so you can feel better. Then. So we would put that into a pile and burn it as an offering to God. Because it doesn't help anyone and it's false and it's bad. We say to that, So here are a people sprung, as it were, from the actions and duty of a god, a far-seeing god, who sacrifices for man's growth and nurture. The arts, fire, and dialectic Prometheus stole from Zeus, and gave them to man as gifts. In that gift he sanctified the arts. It is through them that the people of Earth can sustain themselves and reach the intelligible and come to wonder about its source. The arts, fire, and the dialectic. The arts are sanctified. The people of Earth, that's us, good noodles, we can sustain ourselves. We can reach the intelligible. And we can wonder about its source. Here we have a bit of a clue as to our question. So we've got the soul. We can sustain our soul. That's important. We can reach the intelligible, knowledge, ultimate reality, all of the positives. But here, our question was, well, if this is knowledge, and this is where we gain understanding, what the heck happens here? Hasn't been answered yet, but he says he does say we wonder about the source of the intelligible. You wonder about the good or the one. Is it a wonder? I don't know. Sounds like wondering about its source is the way to reach the knowledge of this. But what kind of knowledge is it? It's not knowledge, because knowledge is here. Right, so wonder is involved. Keep that in our pockets. The idea of sacrifice means the willingness to sacrifice what one treasures and loves, and to be willing to join forces with a destructive fury that ends all life. Okay, this is the other idea of sacrifice. If the idea of sacrifice means sacrifice what one most loves and treasures, right? What do bullies do? Try and crush what you love. What do parents do to children? Crush what they love to impose their beliefs. What do all religions say? Kill what you love. Kill your son Abraham. Kill the non-believers. Kill reason, mind, self. So you can. What's the carrot offered? A willingness to join forces with a destructive fury that ends all life. Yes, kill everyone and let the world burn, and Jesus will come back. Maybe. Sounds stupid, but that's the sales pitch. And we are primed for that sales pitch because we have pathologos. We don't have a culture who uses the gift of dialectic and the art of philosophical midwifery to purify ourselves from the fact that when we're little, we have to believe that bullshit because we're stuck there. We're 4 years old. We don't know any better, and we're dependent on these people. So, if sacrifice means sacrificing what you most treasure and love, so that you can join forces with a destructive fury that ends all life, then we must ask, if a God is so separated from justice, can he be a God at all? Banger. Banger. There goes Abrahamic religions in one sentence. In a question. If a God is so separated from justice, can he be a God at all? What do you mean? Do all religions demand a sacrifice of what one most treasures and loves in every sense, whether or not what they love in their own self, goals, interest, pursuits, but also self, mind, and understanding to be a believer? Because the nature of belief is defined by conflict, give people power, give people a cult, give people a church, what will happen? They'll play out their soul's implications like we do in our dreams. Therefore, it shouldn't be a surprise that all religions are death cults. They are, because the nature of the soul, by definition, if you are in that fourth level of cognition, belief is one defined by a conflict between the self-logos elements, elements of being, cognition, experience, understanding, reality. Give people power, they play out that conflict on others. That's why believers are sadists in principle. Not because of some character defect, it's just the functioning of that level of cognition. It's not because they picked the wrong religion or that they were a woman. It's simply what it means to be in that cognitive stage of belief. Yes, Paul liked to kill people different from him and created the idea of the rapture and Armageddon and stuff. Yes, Christians are trying to bring an end to the world. Yes, the Jews are murdering the Palestinians, doing genocide against the Palestinians, ethnic cleansing. And Trump's trying to start, World War, the people behind Trump. start Armageddon, so Jesus comes back or whatever the fuck. But equally so, Trump's in conflict with the world, destroying America completely. Of course, all it is the nature of the soul, and you give that person power to play it out onto others. You are others to others. Other people in the world, even others in your own team, other than your own spirit, and of course, other than justice. So yes, belief is a death cult. So there was that YouTube. Let's shout it out one more time because it's a fun one, and people love to be entertained. So there's a video that's very popular on YouTube. How comedy was destroyed by an anti-reality doomsday cult by the Elephant Graveyard. I recommend it. It's a really fun watch. The issue is, hang on. Okay, so yeah, so really fun video, and he comes to the same conclusion we've come to through the logos, that people who are bound by beliefs and images that will therefore end up acting in opposition to reason, evidence, and truth, and they will end up acting therefore in conflict towards themselves, people in their group, and others, and it will end up being a death cult. True for Joe Rogan and the Joe Rogan's verse and the comedy scene in America currently, but true for everything in principle, because that's what we have understood as the nature of the human soul when it's in a state of cognition called belief. Conflict internally, conflict externally. So, we also have already read that in order to be a believer, you necessarily, the thing that makes you the same is that you accept limits. Those three big ones, self, mind, and understanding, are the big ones. But also, therefore, providence, the dialectic, benefit, making you therefore a barbarian. Therefore, we can see how this sentence makes sense completely. You are sacrificing what you most treasure and love, that's the limits, and you are willing to join forces with a destructive fury that ends all life. Death cults. That's what it means to be a believer. In principle, in definition. Therefore, if it's against reason and providence, and it is against one of the limits is mind, where justice itself lives, and the functioning of justice, which is providence and reason, then we have to ask, if a God is so separated from justice, can he be a God at all? So in other words, you can't have an idea of God based on belief or from groups bound by belief. In definition and principle, for any religion that exists now, any religion that existed in the past, any religion that exists in the future, any religion on any planet, in any time, in any dimension, and 1 billion years away and 1 billion light years away and 1 billion years in the future, Therefore, that we are learning something that's true eternally, and a kind of education we can take with us even beyond this lifetime. So we're doing something pretty good for our souls. Hooray for us. So bring back Socrates. If the idea of sacrifice doesn't mean what we described it from Prometheus, getting rid of what's bad, and what, sacrificing your problems, separating it from what sustains you and is needed for health and growth, but is instead the opposite, sacrificing what you most treasure and love, and to be willing to join forces with a destructive fury that ends all life, then we must ask, if a god is so separated from justice, can he be a god at all? The God of Abraham serves the purpose of bringing unity to a people at the price of waging wars on earth that culminate in the final destruction of life. Tell your friends. Got any Jewish, Christian, or Islamic friends? Tell them this. The God of Abraham serves the purpose of bringing unity to a people at the price of waging wars on earth that culminate in the final destruction of all life. But I thought religion was kind of nice. I thought everyone is entitled to their beliefs. I thought religion is good to teach children morality. I thought you can be a good person and still have religion and belief. That's what I learned from fifth people. Massive differences. It's all relative. You mean to say that actually it will culminate in the final destruction of all life? Not just the death of the Palestinian people and this people and that people and that. Not just and the enslavement and the of the poor people and the criminalization of poverty. Oh, and the subjugation of women and I mean, it's actually all life. Holy crap! I thought religion was okay. The God of Abraham served the purpose of bringing unity to a people at the price of waging wars on earth that culminate in the final destruction of all life. So worth understanding, right? Shall we say that this is all because a jealous God needs to conquer his adversary, Satan? From this we can see why they are forbidden to create an image of their God, and cannot be allowed to even think they can comprehend their God. It is likely that to view that image and to reflect on the nature of their own fucking God would challenge their continued existence of their own fucking death cult religion. No shit, you can't create an image of God, and you can't know God, and don't ask questions about God. And don't understand, don't read the book. For 1,000 years, you couldn't even read the Bible. Ask a question to your priest, they tell you to shut up. Draw a picture of Muhammad and the Muslims get mad. Because if you do think about it, you will realize it's bullshit. I'm getting worked up. It hurts my heart to see how much abuse is suffered with this single stupid cause. But if there's a justice to reality, then we have to go through it to see the significance of understanding. If we reject understanding for belief, yes, we suffer. Children are murdered and starved. The billionaires shit on the poor people. and all life comes to an end. That's the significance of rejecting our purpose for our existence, to move from belief into understanding. If you reject your own mind, if you do not ask, why do I have a mind? What is it? What are its parts? How do I use it? Then this is what we suffer. Barbarism, brutality, ignorance, torture. Everything bad is suffered if you don't wake up to the fact you have a mind. You don't automatically know how to use it. You're here to learn how to use it. When you wake up in a video game, you got to know what buttons to push. What tools do you have? What skills do you have? How do you combine the skills to do a super attack? And what's the end of the game? What's the goal? The fact that we're told to never ask those questions is so fucking stupid, but is only there to allow the continued abuse for the sadism of those who think that climbing to the top of the pile of belief is the whole meaning of life. Materialists. If there's only the physical world, then why not manipulate and grift my way to the top so I can get all the physical shit? It's so stupid and close-minded. But if we didn't have that, would we wake up? Even now, we do have that. How many people are in this game? How many people are willing to reflect on the nature of belief and its inherent divisions, us versus them, my team versus that team, I want to win, left versus right, Christians versus Jews. How many people are willing to look at that and understand its nature and look at what their own mind is, understand its nature, and use it properly? Even though we have all of these terrible implications for not looking at that, for not addressing the nature of belief, and not understanding how to use your mind. That you have. It's your highest thing. You got toes, you got fingers, and you got a mind. What's more important? You can live without one or two of your toes, or a few fingers. Can you live without your mind? Then why are we ignoring it? That's the thing that's blown my mind my whole life. And hurts my heart when I see the implications of not waking up. Like, how bad does it have to get? Maybe we should look at the nature of belief as a function of mind, and look at the mind and see what's really there. See the self-logos part, see its dialectical structure, see its purpose to reach Zeus or wisdom, to see the nature of providence and justice and beauty. Maybe we should do that. Nah, shut up. I have my family beliefs. I have my religion. I have Jesus in my heart. Really? You've seen what's happening. You see the children starving to death. You've seen the genocides. It's been live streamed on fucking Twitch. Not Twitch. Instagram. Twitter. Literally, you've seen the Jewish people celebrating the murdering of Palestinian children. You've seen the American Christians celebrating the torture and death camps for anyone who's not white in America. You've seen the billionaires say that empathy is a sin. You've seen it, but you still want religion and belief and not understanding and benefit? How bad does it have to get before people are willing to sacrifice what is negative, sacrifice problems, sacrifice what blocks one from excellence? How bad does it have to take until we're willing to say, I'm going to give up my guns? How bad does it have to get in America? What do guns do? It's a button you can push to end a person's life without their consent. What else does it do? Nothing. Nothing else. If we removed all guns and the creation of guns, we wouldn't have I don't know, a mass school shooting every week in America. Oh, but I don't want to sacrifice what I get a kick out of having. Why? That's barbarianism. PlayStation 5 is really awesome. PlayStation 5, I mean, I can't afford it because I'm a philosophy streamer and musician, so I don't have a lot of money, but I hear it's really cool. The graphics are amazing. They even have a VR headset for PlayStation 5. Play with that. Play with PlayStation 5 and VR. Instead of playing with guns. Isn't that fair? That's an example of how to make sense of the intense cruelty and suffering in our world. As far as I know, I can count the people on one hand who are interested in this kind of stuff here. And I can do that because I can see how many people join into my channels when I stream. And I've spent my life looking for people who are interested in understanding and solving human problems. And as I've reached out to as many people as I can, I've only got the same barbaric response. Fuck you. Die. But it helps. Fuck you. But it's just understanding. I know what you're like. But you don't know what I'm like. I'm different. No, you're not. You're the same as the others. Go to hell. Not everyone. Not everyone. There's been a couple of people who have not responded in that way. But almost all have. How bad does it have to get until we realize we've got a mind? If we use it badly, bad things happen. That's belief. If we use it well, good things happen. That's understanding. And it's just that fucking simple. How bad does it have to get? I don't know. But there has to be a reason for it. That's the justice we're here to see. And I guess that would be it, right? If you didn't have a problem being sustained, why you wouldn't have the motivation to learn the art? And it just seems like problems have to get this bad for humanity to be willing to sacrifice this terrible idea of sacrifice and actually pick up a good idea of sacrificing what blocks our development from belief into understanding. That's what actually sacrificing is. Not sacrificing the good to be in a death cult. I don't know. Every now and again, I'll run into someone and say, oh, a few years ago you said this thing and I was real dick to you. I don't even know why I was really mean to you, but it turned out you were right. It turned out you were right on the ball. Sometimes that happens, but I don't want to be proven right. I don't want the problem to happen. When you said that Elon Musk was a Nazi and Nazism was bad and we shouldn't let him in. It turned out you were right and he was a Nazi. And it turns out Nazis, I can't believe I didn't let... Yeah, well, I don't want I'm sorries. I want... Let's not have the problem in the first place. Anyway. But that's a puzzle. So that's one of the puzzles that has arisen for me in reading this book, and I will carry it with me as I continue to read and see if the book itself shines light on why this happens to be the case in our experience. Why? Why is it so difficult for human beings to turn around from belief and develop a love of understanding? And what's it going to take? Now, if I get lots of viewers and Twitch affiliate and I get money, and then I can, I don't know, buy really fancy clothes and get really beautiful, and everyone would watch me for my beauty and then get into philosophy. So let's do that. Send an email to Mr. Twitch and say, give all of the followers to Jed so he can get rich. To become beautiful, to share philosophy. I'm joking, but there are some people who have a natural beauty anyway that attracts followers. And so maybe if you're one of them, maybe you'll have a greater effect than I'm having. We shall see. So, where does this idea of killing people to bring an end to life come from? A jealous God in the story of the Abrahamic God needs to conquer adversary Satan, right? Which then manifests in left versus right, and in my team versus your team. And from this, Socrates is talking. From this we can see why they are forbidden to create an image of their God and cannot be allowed to even think that they can comprehend their God. God is mysterious. He's beyond. How dare you say you can understand God? You are a heretic. Literally. That's how fucking stupid it is. Or has been. We are going to burn you for saying you can know God. Currently, create an image of Muhammad. We are going to stone you to death. Why? Because it is likely that if they view that image to reflect on the nature of such a God, it would challenge the continued existence of their faith and their enslavement in the death cult. We shall not talk about Joe Rogan. If we want to have comedy at the mothership, we shall not discuss him. We shall not create any craven images of Joe Rogan doing sexual things with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. We shall not. We shall not show such images of Joe Rogan's boss, the guy who runs UFC, doing similar things with Donald Trump and Elon Musk, while shooting children who are the paws. We shall not, if we want to get a spot at the comedy death ship mothership or a spot on the Joe Rogan podcast, right between Peter Thiel and who's that baby face guy with the eyeliner? Fathead, what's his name? Can't remember. Vice President. Right between Vance, JD Vance, and Peter Thiel. That's the podcast spot you can have if you don't ever challenge and reflect. Jesus says, we should remember that one of our differences is that with your reason, you can always start off with a clean slate. With those like me, we must assume the traditions of our fathers. Yes, carry our ignorance from the past. And then try to challenge the literal to the spiritual level of meaning. Change the literal. Right. This is a difficulty that I've also seen trying to share philosophy. People who grow up in a religion are very, very, very opposed to philosophy. But if you can wangle it around to say, hey, look, there are these Gnostic Gospels, or actually the story of Mark shows Jesus going through a movement from belief into understanding through the Hellenic tradition, having an enlightenment experience, not having done midwifery and dream analysis, and then reverting to his false beliefs and playing out his tragic end. That's literally Jesus. And if you take out Paul's shit, you see the state of heaven is a state of mind, the kingdom of God is a state of self, and you can only reach it through understanding his parables. You have literally Jesus himself saying Hellenic thought or understanding is the purpose of life and the way to heaven and the kingdom of God. You can even see it in the first 2 lines of the Gospel of John. All things are from autos, the self, and through logos. You can also see in the next 2 sentences of John that very issue of his own personal beliefs coming in, and then the chosen one was John. That's me. I'm the best boy ever. So yes, no one reached the vision and understanding of Jesus, and even Jesus himself had a difficulty without philosophical midwifery. Therefore, if you are a thinking Christian, your job is to become a Socratic philosopher. You can even see further evidence in that in the Gnostic Gospels that we've unearthed in Egypt in the 60s. Saying that to a Christian seems to help open their mind, because they have to assume the traditions of their fathers. No, thou shalt not challenge mummy and daddy, and then try to change the literal to the spiritual level of meaning. Literally, the kingdom of heaven isn't in the fucking clouds, even though we have clouds here on the street. It's a state of mind, and you can see that in the conversations in Mark and also the Gnostic Gospels. Conversations Jesus had in Mark prior to his illumination experience. So that's the difficulty. Reason you don't have to start off saving the belief. So there's a level of difficulty for people growing up in hardcore Christian families, because whether you like it or not, you didn't have a choice. Well, you did have a choice, but it's very difficult to not be indoctrinated as a child. So another reason why it's worth understanding, even though you might not be religious, understanding the Abrahamic religions is significant for these 2 reasons. You're still influenced by it in your culture, media, presidents, and your family has been influenced in it in some way as well. And secondly, if you can find the Logos dynamic happening even in their stories, you might make it easier to share it with others. Like what I just shared about why thinking Christians should become Socratic philosophers, or true Christians shouldn't give up being a Pauline Jew. Those are principles that we read earlier in the book, the Kerygma. Jesus was the only Son of God. He rose from the dead. The Armageddon's going to come, and the raptured, the believers who had baptism and Eucharist will be taken to heaven, and the demons and the devil will be beaten. All that crap was from Paul. Therefore, if you give up being a Pauline Jew and actually listen to Jesus, you should become a Socratic thinker. Reclaim your understanding, mind, and self. Because it's not literally kingdom of God and heaven. It's spiritually a heaven as a state of mind, and kingdom of God, the state of the self. So there's a second reason why it's worth understanding this, to reach out to people. So, so no more murder and inequality and death cults, and let's not bring an end to all life on the planet. As an idea. What else should we do? Cookie is in my belly. So, yes, so people, with those like Jesus, growing up in his Jewish tradition or any Abrahamic, we have to start with the tradition and assume them to be right, and then try and change the literal to the spiritual. Unbarbarianify ourselves. So with reason, you can easily start your dialectic with the rejection of our Abrahamic God, but we cannot. Reason rejects Abrahamic God. Isn't it interesting? If reason can reject the Abrahamic God, why save it? They can't. They have to assume it's right, because that would mean their daddy is wrong and their mummy is wrong. And then when they were crushed for not believing, then that was wrong and unjust. But then it means that the preacher was wrong, but he has a skateboard. And it means that the Pope is wrong, but he has a funny hat. And that means that the Bible is wrong, but they killed people for 1,000 years for even reading a Bible. Surely that was for a good reason, etc., etc. There's lots of implication that follow to your false beliefs about loved ones and key figures in your life, each of which you can unravel. You can unravel that web of connection to significant figures and the connection to images of justice, of realities. Image of justice. My parents were beautiful. No, that's an image of beauty. That's not real beauty. It's going to prevent you. You're going to be in relationships with people just like your mum and dad. We all know that. Same conflict, same bullshit. Do to your kids what you suffered. Yes, but you can unravel all those threads of significant connections to significant others, significant figures, and connections to the ideas through the process of dream analysis and philosophical midwifery to free yourself from what you, had you started with a clean slate, would not have had in the first place. You can untangle your web. In fact, that's what we're here for. That's reading the manual of the game. That's the game. That's why we came here in the first place. And what we need to take with us when we leave. The art of unraveling those threads. The dialectic. Gift from Prometheus. Now, those are the questions that we are not allowed to ask in our culture. Where do we come from? Where are we going? And what do we do while we're here? But that's just reading the manual. Well, Socrates, says Jesus, we have gone along this path of the dialectic, and now what other distinctions shall you make? Yes, yes. Among those who follow a tribal god, there are those who we can call the descendants of Abraham. While there are now several distinct groups, their differences override their similarities. The animosity of these groups with one another spawns countless wars. Countless wars. And acts of violence directed at each other. Barbarianism. As a whole, these religions unite against those who reject their message. They're killing themselves, they're killing each other. Well, they're killing each other, even those who have different versions of their own religion. So they're killing their own, they're killing other religious people, but as a whole, the religious people come together and kill atheists. The core or non-believers, understanders even. The core belief of sacrifice they share betrays their own fundamental weakness. Oh. Oh, that's a big one. The core belief of sacrifice they share betrays their own fundamental weakness. So there are lots of ways of unifying belief-based cognition or religious people. Descendants of Abraham, sure. Others to others, sure. A conflict within themselves, sure. A conflict externally, sure. The cause of the suffering and countless wars on our planet, sure. But another way of unifying them all is an idea of sacrifice. Sacrificing what is most important and what they most love to be a blind follower in death cults that will end life. To continue your thought, says Jesus, I would add something to pull together what we have said about this movement, that it has been said I started. Ah, yes. This movement that people say is started by Jesus. First, if those who call themselves a Christian do so because they accept Paul's vision of Jesus, they do gain some support from the last gospel of the New Testament, the Gospel of John. So they must be called Pauline John followers. We were calling them Pauline Jews, but if John also chimed in to say, oh, I'm on Team Paul, I'm not on Team Mark, who rejects Paul, or Team Thomas, the twin, or Team Jimmy James. So Pauline and John formed a coalition of disgusting hate and belief. So we can say they are Pauline John followers. I follow along with what you are saying, and for my part, I would say something about what we are calling the Hellenes. They are the ones who recognize that mindfulness is not a matter of birth. Mindfulness, here we go. Not a matter of birth. Born Jews, right? Race. Nazis, right? Or anything other than acknowledging that the dignity of man comes from the freedom to express the mind.
Freaks. Whore much?
I've been promising to get better to update my soundboard, but I just haven't had time lately. I apologize. Maybe I'm going to say I'll find time today, but I got music stuff to do today. It's not birth, whether you were born to a Jewish parent, or race, whether you were born of the chosen white people, or the chosen Israeli people, or the chosen whoever the fucks. It's the dignity of man comes from the freedom to express the mind with a capital M. I have found the most dramatic presentation of this theme in the great play of Asclepius. No, Ascius. Ascius's suppliant maidens. Among these So, I'll just do that again. From what I remember of the suppliant maidens, a group of Ethiopian women, so black women, being hunted down by a bunch of guys who wanted to marry them and enslave them and rape them and all that, forced marriage, and they ran to a temple, a Greek temple, for sanctuary. And the priest there said, "We can only grant sanctuary to Greek people." And so the play that is referring to here is a story of these people showing the priest that they were Greek. Now that's the puzzle is, but they're black, they're Ethiopian. Doesn't matter. It's not a matter of where you were born or your race. It's your state of mind. That's what makes you Hellenic. That's what makes you Greek. That's what they had to show to be granted sanctuary. And in the end, they said, I think it was, well, we would rather die than give our souls to be enslaved by the injustice of these men. And in that act, The priest knew. You're Hellenic. Justice, truth, integrity, virtue. In that statement, he knew that they were Hellenic, despite the fact they were women, and despite the fact that they were black, despite the fact that they were Ethiopian. Doesn't matter. It's about your mind, people. Anyway, yeah, so I just went on a bit of a reflection there because I brought this book up to Pierre in a meeting with other people that he meets with on various days of the week, like a group of people. And I brought it up, and I don't think he understood what I was referring to. But instead of asking me directly, the other people around him jumped in a way, oh, maybe he means this, maybe he means that, maybe he means to represent what I was saying in a really stupid way, in a way that diminished me. And I was surprised by two things. Why would people who have spent so many years around this guy, someone who's rediscovered the work of Socrates, given us what we need to turn our whole race around, solve our problems, why would they be so eager to diminish a rare person who's gone all the way around the other side of the world to learn the very thing that their whole philosophy is about sharing? Why, instead of embracing someone who wants to understand and do the thing that they're supposed to be sharing, why were they more interested in playing their parental role of diminishing and admonishing and belittling others? Even though many of them have been doing philosophical midwifery for decades. Isn't it easier just to talk to someone and ask them, what do you mean? Especially someone clever enough to recognize the value in the very thing they've been spending their lives doing. And the second thing was, why did Pierre listen to them? Why didn't he just ask me? There's a couple of times I saw something funny and I laughed at it, and instead of asking me what I was finding funny, he had created what he thought I must have been laughing at, and he was wrong. Another time in a seminar, I had a question about providence and how the understanding of the good and the one and the experience of the good and the one, even though it's a special kind of experience, is providential. It's providential for all to reach that ultimately, which is literally what we're reading here. Didn't understand what I was saying. I didn't get what he wasn't understanding. I think it was because I said it's providence to reach it, rather than saying it's providential. I was using providence as an adjective. It's providence to. It's the work of providence to. And instead of asking me, he let somebody else ask the question, but he didn't ask the question, he just gave a little lecture. Well, if providence is dreams, and dreams is this, and then there's providence in midwifery, and then how can you say it's providence to know that? Like, how can you say it's providence to know the self? And I said, because it's good. Everything that you just said isn't irrelevant. It's providential to know the self because it's good, and that's what providence is. And they just looked at me like I was stupid. Like, I was thinking, and afterwards I spent years thinking about that. If you're confused, why go to you're stupid? Why not just ask? And surely the fact that I'm here tells you I'm no dunce. Anyway. There must be a reason for that. Maybe the fact that I was playing the role of student wasn't my role there. Instead of me saying, hang on a second, you're confused, and the reaction to your confusion is to project an image of what you think I might be thinking in both of those examples. But your projections are never right. In fact, almost always they are a projection that diminishes the other person, which allows you to play the role of the knower, which I guess is axiomatic, because for you to presume you are already playing the role of the knower, therefore you can only project the other part of that pathologos dynamic, the knower and the child. So therefore it's always going to be a diminished reflection if you project, and it's always going to be an expression of your own issue. So not only is it not me, and not only is it diminishing, it's literally a projection of your own pathologos issue that you were supposed to be dealing with. So my frustration was, shouldn't that be obvious to you? Shouldn't it be obvious that if you're confused, you have two options: to talk to me as a person, but if you don't, then you're projecting. If you are projecting, it's always going to be an expression of your pathologos. It's always going to be diminishing, and it's never going to be me. My reaction to all of these things was frustration and confusion and a little bit of disappointment. Like, shouldn't you know this? But I think that was my bad, because the fact that they didn't know this or didn't recognize they were playing it out, I should have not been playing the student, even though it was a long time ago. And I've been learning this all on my own. I should have said, oh, I can see you're confused. I can see you're guessing at what I think. Let's not play that game. Put words on your confusion. What about what I said did you not follow? So that I can answer it directly. Yeah. Because I did bring this up. There was a meeting, and I didn't say a lot because of how often that happened. But there was something I said, oh, by the way, that's the that story of the suppliant maidens. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, I think he means this. I think he means that. Oh, it pissed me off. It's surprising how much that happens, though. People project and they presume they know, but they're never going to be right because it's a projection, which is by definition adding to the present. Which is fascinating, because that's what we just read was the issue of people who grow up in a religion. They have to assume their beliefs, projections, opinions are right to begin with, and then they have to try and overcome that to reach the spiritual level of meaning. So here I was, not having to go through that. Say, oh yeah, you're just projecting. And I was like, why are you projecting? That's bad. I felt sad. When I should have said, oh, you're in a thing, making it difficult for you to deal with your confusion and to ask questions to clear up your confusion. Let me step in and say, well, let me take the lead. That's what I never did around Pierre. I didn't take the lead. Because he's fucking Pierre Grimes. That statement I just made is an expression of the problem. He's fucking Pierre Grimes means, because he's a genius, he's someone who's gone beyond Socrates to recreate the elements of Socrates that we have lost. So of the greatest minds in human history, Socrates is up there at number one, and Pierre surpassed him. Why would I take the lead? Is just, oh, I'm just a small bean. It's not a matter of, I don't know, how awesome the dude is. It's if you see it or not. which is interesting because that's exactly the kind of indoctrination they give to believers. If this is Jesus and he's number one, who are you to say you can go beyond Jesus? If this is God and he's even beyond the Father of Jesus, who are you to say you can understand God? Not just understand God, but go beyond God to recognize yourself, which is literally the cause of God. If this is the divine, and this is the best soul, the best boy Jesus, who are you to say that you can understand better than Jesus? And we can. Who are you to say that you can know the idea of God? That's the whole point. That's what knowledge is. And who are you to say that you can go beyond it? That's who we are. Meaning I was carrying an image of myself inconsistent with me saying to Pierre, you've got an issue here that's causing a projection and preventing you from relating to your confusion with a question, and instead passing it off to other students who are not at the level, maybe because of your idea of what it means to be a teacher or something else, or maybe as part of a great grift or a con, the same con played on you maybe. But what you could do is put words on your confusion to me directly. Which should be a fundamental challenge to any idea of any kind of small being. Because if Pierre's such a great being, a good noodle. Anyway, that was just for me. So sometimes you got to give one for your, what is it? Actors sometimes have a thing. One movie for them and one movie for me. They do one Marvel movie for the box office, and then they do an independent movie for their own artisticness. That reflection just there was one for me. Now, if I can recognize that issue of small being self or the pathologo self preventing a engaging in the dialectic, which is the very thing we've been talking about, and also midwifery, because I recognized that they were blocked from engaging in reason with me. Could have been lots of reasons at it. Like, I was a foreigner, I was younger than everyone there, had an accent. I used to do powerlifting, so I was a bigger dude than lots of the frail old people who were around. Lots and lots of reasons. But the fact was they were projecting, and I had been, even though I'd been learning on my own, I had been doing midwifery for a long time and dream analysis. And I was able to recognize that their confusion, which is a state of philosophy that's being stung or puzzled, needs to be then met with the dialectic, and they were blocked. They were confused about what I was saying for whatever reason, and they went into their projection. And I could have dealt with both of it. All that would have meant is taking the lead in the dialogue, or being the dialectician. But instead I thought, well, it's Pierre. He wrote the book. And if he's passing it off to a student to ask me a question, hi, just joined. Is this all on YouTube? It's on YouTube and Twitch. And all of the past episodes are archived on the YouTube. So we're about 119 pages into this book, which is the best book I've ever seen. It bangs. This book bangs so hard, it will give you traumatic brain injury. That's how much of a banger this book is. It's called Socrates and Jesus, A Dialogue in Heaven. You can order a copy, or you can find a link to the PDF below. It's amazing. So, at the moment, In essence, it's how we can understand the nature of self, reality, the meaning of life, and what's involved in separating ourselves or sacrificing the cause of our problems, a kind of way of thinking based in belief in images, to free us up to develop not belief but understanding, apply that understanding, or the skill of understanding is called the dialectic, so we can apply it to the nature of reality itself, culminating in an enlightenment experience where you know everything all at once. That's the experience of knowing. But then that's not enough, because you have to apply that understanding you've developed to surface your false beliefs and images, because you don't want to make sense of an illumination experience by saying, I'm the next Jesus, which happens. And that's literally the story of Jesus in the Gospel of Mark. He has a luminosity experience and he thinks, I'm the chosen one. I'm the king of the Jews. But you don't want to do that. So there's a skill of the dialectic to remove your false images and blocks. And then you use that to understand the nature of that eternal experience. Know yourself as eternity. That's knowledge, or the idea of the good. But then to wonder what's even the cause of that, because that still has to have a cause. That's the one, or the good, or the self. So that's our purpose, or our spiritual journey. In a nutshell, that probably isn't going to make a lot of sense because we're like 40 episodes in. But right now, in the book, there's a reference to a play where a group of Ethiopian women run into a temple to claim sanctuary from some men who want to enslave and rape them, and say, hey, we're Hellenics, grant us sanctuary, and they have to prove that they are, showing that the Hellenic way of being, or loving understanding, this isn't anything to do with your race or where you were born, because they were Ethiopian and they're black. It's to do with your state of mind or state of being. And I'm taking a moment for myself because I remember having this conversation, referring to this very play to the author of this book, who's a fucking genius, who literally rediscovered the art of the dialectic that we lost when we killed Socrates. But which I was learning on my own over in Australia. When I went over to America to talk with the guy, there was a moment where his own image or belief prevented him from talking to me directly when he was confused. And instead of myself recognizing that was happening and recognizing I have the art of the dialectic myself, I thought I was just a wee small bean. I'm not good enough to lead the conversation. And when he passed off the conversation to one of his students, I thought, well, there must be a good reason. Maybe instead of talking to me directly, he's trying to help others, like to get them talking and get them engaged and whatever. So I played along when really I should have said, oh no, I see what's going on. Even though I'm younger and weird looking and have an accent and all that sort of stuff, doesn't matter. It's not about my race. It's not about my age. It's not about where I'm born. It's about my state of mind and the mastery of the dialectic, the art of using understanding. I had it back then, but I hadn't yet addressed my beliefs sufficiently to recognize whenever I put myself down and think of myself as a small being, so I wasn't able to use it in a time where I should have used it, where I was talking to a fucking guru. Took me a long time to get over there. A lot of sacrifice to get over there. Showing you that, hey, even if you do have the art of the dialectic, you also have to remove your beliefs. Otherwise, you won't need it when you need it. You won't have it when you need it. You'll think you're a small bean, and oh, he's the guru. He's smarter than Socrates. He's literally the next in line to be the Buddha of Korean Buddhism. It's never happened to a white guy before. So a spiritual guru and a master of philosophy recreating the works of the greatest mind of humanity, Socrates, but going beyond him because he's added to the tradition. Who am I? I'm just a small being. It's not about any of that. It's about whether or not you're free of any image of yourself that puts yourself down, or any image full stop, Because it's just reason. If you see it, you see it. And if you see it and can communicate it in the dialectic, then lead the conversation. Whether it's Pierre or Socrates or Jesus himself, which is what is happening in the book. Socrates is leading the conversation with Jesus. And seeing that this book reminded me of that scene that I hadn't yet fully understood, I took a moment to do that reflection for myself. And just like actors do, one for them and one for me. Like one Hollywood movie for the blockbusters and then one indie movie for my artisticness. Well, this one was one for me. But you also have to go one step further and say, okay, if this was a block that prevented my functioning in my excellence or the dialectic, especially when I needed it or could have benefited from it, how is it still playing out in my current life? When am I still not leading the conversation? Even though I'm the one qualified, or I happen to be the one who can see when the false beliefs come up, and have the art of dream analysis and midwifery and the art of the dialectic to either address the block or understand the nature of the block that came in, or bring us back to the conversation itself. One is the dialectic applied to truth, that's philosophy. The other is a dialectic applied to what's false, midwifery. Dream analysis is the dialectic applied to both, and telling stories about it, that's actual mythology. Those are the four applications of the dialectic in one single art called philo, love of dianoia, philodianoia. And if we share it, like I'm trying my best to do here on this channel, then we are creating the conditions for an awakening of the new age of mind and reason, which gives us what we need. The gift from Prometheus, there's a myth for your ass. The gift of Prometheus is the dialectic, which allows man to solve problems and reach his purpose or highest excellence. So, my job is to recognize that feeling state I was in when I small beaned myself, instead of functioning with excellence, which is the dialectic, either in midwifery or philosophy or guiding the conversation, which is leading. Because whenever I'm in that feeling state now, in my present or future, it's an indication of that small being, which is a false image of the self that isn't true. And while I might not have done enough dream analysis and midwifery at the time, I've done a fuck ton since. So I've got enough of that under my belt to address it. But I will continue to have dreams, so that will continue to help me put the pieces together from my midwife talks and previous dream analysis insights and future ones. All connected to the feeling state of disappointed, frustrated, and not speaking, and the functioning of not speaking up, not leading, and the image of myself being small bean. That's how you do it. And you know what's going to happen tonight? I'm going to have another dream that will help me do that. So, one for me, but also one for you, because I gave you guys an explanation of the suppliant maidens. That's the story. That is a story that represents that mindfulness, or mindfulness is a word that we point to the state of self. So while knowingness is being, knowledge or wisdom is being and understanding together, the word for the state of self in Greek is phronesis. We don't have an English equivalent. So the one that the translator of these texts is using is mindfulness. I don't know whether mindfulness is the best word to talk about the state of the one or the good, but that's the one we're going with currently. So if that state of Zeus, or the self, or the one or the good, we'll call it mindfulness for now, as a placeholder. Maybe we have to go back to phronesis. Maybe we can find a better word, because we don't have a English for phronesis. But it's not a matter of birth or race. If you're an Aussie, if you happen to be weird looking compared to them, or you have an accent, it's a freedom to express the mind. There was something in the way I can't express the mind in this way, express mindfulness, express the dialectic in self, to address this issue and continue this conversation as a leader. The whole supplement, the whole play makes the point that none of that means anything. Which is ironic, because it's this very play that triggered this memory to this very issue that the play itself is supposed to address. So, one for me and one for you, because now you know what the play is about. Unpaused. Bring back sock. I follow along with what you're saying, and for my part I would say something about what we are calling the Hellenes. They are the ones who recognize that mindfulness, the state of self, is not a matter of birth, race, or anything other. Right? Then acknowledging that the dignity of man comes from the freedom to express mind. The mind. I have found the most dramatic presentation of this theme in that great play of Aeschylus, The Suppliant Maidens, among that we've just had a bit of a review on in that little break. Among these Hellenes, there are those who go on to gain fundamental insights into the nature of mind. So mindfulness isn't the state of self yet, because he's right, there's the expressing of the mind. Then there's those who go on to gain fundamental insights into the nature of mind. Again, of those, some go on to experience the majesty and the beauty of the luminous light of being. So another stage. However, as much as these two groups vary, they are drawn to seek to understand such profound experiences. As a group, most seek to enter these states of mind through the Eleusinian mysteries. But the mark of the Hellenic is to seek the excellence in understanding all that is. Wow.
Wow.
That is the very thing they seek to achieve in the arts, mathematics, astronomy, biology, and agriculture. Architecture. So we've got levels of development of expressing the mind. You can have insights into the nature of mind. You can go all the way through those insights into the highest expression of the luminous light of being. But whether it's just little insights or even levels of division of that enlightenment experience, all the way to the top, what makes you Hellenic is you want to understand them. There are some, as a group, they can facilitate the entering into those states of mind through the Eleusinian mysteries, which is kind of like acid. as a culture, they would come together once a year, I think, or once every 6 months. And half the town would be involved. And they would take a derivative of LSD, ergot, which can facilitate the movement into the state of mind. But, you know, and then you have those levels of insights into mind or the luminous light of being. But the point is, to be Hellenic is to understand it, and how that insight into reality or mind itself is reflected into physical expression in its copy or creation. That's what is the point of mathematics, astronomy, biology, agriculture, and any of the arts. It's not to how to get good at a skill so you can earn the big bucks or manipulate people through owning all of media and owning the war machine. None of that use of your human mind to manipulate people for personal profit. It's the opposite. It's you are learning all of these things in the physical world to gain an understanding of all that is mind. Because all of these patterns and arts are reflections of that fundamental logos and dialectic, or the pattern or intelligibility of that experience of mind. That's what it means to be Hellenic. All right. Jesus says, "You sharpen the difference between these two very clearly. The Abrahamic religions are truly closed belief systems. They do not continue from any prior tradition. They spring from primary figures, and from then they contain the whole." Interesting. Right, so the personal opinions of Paul or John in particular, or Abraham, just people's shit. But I'm the best, I'm king shit, says religion. Which is why if you want to, prove something in Christianity, wangle it around so Jesus said it. You're a Jew, wangle it around like Moses said it. You're a Muslim, wangle it around that Muhammad actually thinks this. Charlie Kirk passed away. What do all the right-wingers do? Every single one, before, like, a second after he was murdered, they wangled it around like, Charlie Kirk would want me to say this. Charlie Kirk would want me to say that. Charlie Kirk believed in all of my beliefs. Literally, it's the same game always. People finding opportunities to project their own personal beliefs they haven't addressed, that are all not just unjust and wrong, it's their own fucking problem that they are supposed to be dealing with. Or option B, Hellenic mind, seeking through a love of understanding, understand the nature of beliefs, understand and experience mind at all of its levels, and go on to understand and wonder about the self. Belief or understanding, that's it. Projection or seeing, that's it. So simple, yet so profound. And that's the beauty in it. The beauty or Aphrodite is in its simplicity, and the harmony or order or Apollo is in its rationality. Of course, Apollo and Aphrodite go together to reach Hermes, the dialectic. Socrates. I have come to see that the Abrahamic religions share much with the Zoroastrians, while they ignore the sameness. There is much that can be said about these religions being closed. Zoroastrianism, from what I remember, it's been a while. I think it's the Zoroastrianism is the idea that the physical world is simply a battleground between the forces of good and evil. Us versus them, which is belief, which is the nature of belief. Again, Abraham's belief, Paul's beliefs, John's belief, Zoroaster's belief. Evil exists. Our problem isn't problems caused by belief and an ignorance of understanding. No, it's the bad guys. It's the evil guys who wear the black hats in the movies. It's the devils and the demons. It's the people who watch Harry Potter. Ooh. So, the idea that it's us versus them, left versus right, Democrats versus Republicans, MAGAs versus liberals, all that shit. Division, conflict, can be tied to Zoroaster, or Zoroastrian way of thinking. That's not in the book, so you can look up Zoroastrianism, and you can also look up the Suppliant Maidens if you're curious. They ignore the sameness, but both are closed because religion's closed. This is what you have to think. That's called faith. No more. Can't go beyond. But also, no development. It's closed. Do as you're told. This is what you think. That's it. Closed. Crazy, isn't it? Of course, it's the source of problems. I have come to see that the Abrahamic religions share much with the Zoroastrians. While they ignore the sameness, there is much that can be said about these religions as being closed. How do you understand what I have said, says Jesus. If I express it, I will need to contrast it with the Hellenic tradition. I would be delighted to hear it. In those closed systems, no further development can occur within them unless they break away and form a subgroup. They have no connection to any past, and no connection with anything in their future. They have the moment that is isolated and out of history. Within themselves, they cannot admit change without collapsing. Now consider the difference. The future is open to the Hellenes. I'll show you what I see for them. I will put it in general terms, and you, for your part, will furnish it with the names. Oh, like he did before. I'll give you the metaphysical principles. You put the names on it. You put the 12 Olympian gods in it. Who's involving him, showing us what it means to be a dialectician. The understanding of the Hellenic gods as a harmony of certain of certain ideas attributed to each of these gods would be easily recognized by the Hellenes. The difference in the tales of gods would be subjects of discussion. That would, that's good. That would reveal the level of understanding of the spokesman. Right? Right? Of course. If you write a story about Superman, and some genius writes a story about Superman, and some moron writes a story about Superman, they're gonna be different stories of Superman. One's gonna suck, one's gonna be cool, one's gonna be average or whatever. I don't know where you fit in. Take you out of that situation. Doesn't mean Superman is all of those things. It's a way of revealing the level of understanding of you and vision of you, the author. So the way that we study the Greek gods currently is fucking stupid. Let's all collect all of the stories into one book. That's Zeus. Bollocks. Oh, Christianity is... No, there's Paul's idea of Christianity, his level of understanding and belief. There's John's, there's Matthew's, there's Mark's, there's Luke's, there's Thomas's, there's Jimmy, James, and the other Gnostic Gospels. There's a whole bunch of fucking people. It's so stupid to take it literally. It can't be. Sorry for calling it stupid if you're one of those people, but not you, stupid. The ideas that have been indoctrinated or encultured into you are stupid if you think that way. Of course, that's the point. Because Socrates is saying, hey, look, the differences in the tales of the gods, subjects of discussions that would reveal the level of understanding of a spokesman. Each personification and tale of the god would be like strands woven into the tapestry of wisdom. The shallow understanding of these images and tales would clearly be recognized as something discordant. Oh, that doesn't fit. Right? Imagine using Superman and Spider-Man to talk about these principles, and someone says, well, I have a story about Spider-Man. Spider-Man punches the girls because girls suck and boys are the best. And then Wonder Woman dies because of that. You go, well, that doesn't fit. That's discordant with the tapestry of Superman that we've been weaving as a representation of wisdom. We'd recognize it. Right? Do we do the same? With Trump's idea of Jesus? With the evangelistic preacher who has the $1 billion jet? Or the $1 billion mansion? Or the Christian preacher who says we need to invade Iraq? Or George Bush who says God told him to invade Iraq? Or Netanyahu saying God tells him to murder, to starve to death Palestinian children and bomb and genocide a whole race of people? Oh, well, if you say God says so, if you say Jesus says so, if you say Muhammad says so, if you say... See? This is what happens if we stay as barbarian savages who take mythology literally and don't recognize it's a personification of metaphysical principles that we can all understand A and experience B if we C, remove our false beliefs, and we can D, go on to know the self. So every story is not a literal fucking thing about Jesus, Netanyahu, or Bush, or whatever the fuck. It's an expression of your own level of ignorance and belief and your own level of understanding and vision. It's that, just that it. It's always belief versus understanding. That's it. Isn't that cool? Isn't this a cool way of understanding stories and telling stories? And talking about stories. Oh, well, Charlie Kirk said it, so it's right. Oh, well, George Bush said it. Oh, well, Muhammad said it, so it's right. No. If Muhammad says it, then like everything anyone says, he's not a special chosen boy. It's a level of understanding and belief. His level of his belief and or understanding that he's cultivated so far in his lifetime. If it wasn't, he wouldn't fucking be here. Because that's what we're here for. By definition. Isn't it obvious? Isn't it cool when it's so clear and obvious? I think so. The shallow understanding of these images would be clearly recognized as something discordant, like when a musician hears jazz. That chord shouldn't be there. You're a crazy man, you jazz player. The ability to understand these ideas within their particular drama or myth gives a natural affinity with dream analysis. To understand ideas, number one, understanding again, yet again, within a particular drama or myth, number two, is dream analysis. Practicing it will help you gain a natural affinity with dream analysis. Which again is how we awaken our own mysticism, gain our own guidance, connect with our own personal guru, and awaken the dawn of the new age of reason and mind. Such people will generate a dream culture. Ooh. The inability to grasp the meaning behind the image would clearly mark those who can only function on a literal and concrete level of mind. What we currently call people who are motivated by shapes and colors, or baby brains, or mush brains. People call them baby brains. I call mush brains because mush is the food that a baby eats. They eat mush. Can only function on a literal level. Oh, but actually there is the Jesus, and he loves you, and he's in my heart, and he's on a cloud, and he has a white beard. Oh, goodness. I just reviewed in my head all of the conversations I've had with people like that, and how certain they are of their ignorance. Oh. Anyway. The inability to grasp the meaning behind the image would clearly mark those who can only function on a literal and concrete level of mind. A keen nurturing of the tales of the gods or mythology, keen nurturing, which is what we do here. Try and stream as much as I can. Of the tales of gods or mythology is a way of using the mind to know the mind as participating in the works of mind. One more time. A nurturing of the tales of the gods or mythology is the way of using the mind to know the mind as participating in the works of the mind. Wow. You have a dream, that's the works of the mind. You don't participate it unless you use the mind, your mind, to know your mind. That's the whole purpose of your dream, not to tell you that you're going to be rich or whatever. I joke about that sometimes. You're using your mind through the dialectic understanding to know the mind, including removing what's false. And that's the participation in the works of the mind. That's dream analysis and mythology. Isn't that neat? Both of which, so previously we were said, how do we give birth to this new age that's absolutely necessary for individuals in our culture, the Hellenic mind? Didn't we murder everyone? Didn't the believers murder everyone and have thousands of years of sexism and racism and genocide and kill anyone who was smart? Said, if we create the same conditions, we'll have the same effects. What were the conditions? He said two things. Number one, a mythological culture that does theology the way we've been doing it, mythologically represent the principles of reality, self, mind, and our spiritual growth. Metaphysics. Theology is the representation of metaphysics in stories. Not literal. But he also said, hey, we can give birth to this mysticism for everyone, no one's excluded, and we can give birth to the dawn of the new age of the mind through dream analysis. So there were two ways of bringing back this, what we need, this new way of being, on the table. And here, at the end of this section, he brings them both together in a beautiful way. By saying, hey, to understand the Hellenic gods as a harmony of certain ideas attributed to those gods, you can tell stories about the differences express your problems or blocks or level of development. The stories themselves can be objects of reflection with your good friends, the good noodles out there. People who are completely blocked and have a lot of work to do are people who take them literally. That's, by the way, it's not a blame game. We're not punishing them or telling them that they're bad. It's just that's where you're at. Kids maybe more like that, I suppose. By the way, if you do that in mythology, you are awakening a kinship to dream analysis, because that's exactly what dream analysis is as well. It's a mythology presented to you about yourself and your blocks, and the metaphysical principles of reality that you yourself as a soul are climbing through to know the mind and self. It's the same game. The dialectic applied to analogies or allegories, or tying image thinking not to belief, but to understanding. That's what we need to do. Dream analysis / mythology, which is a keen nurturing of the tale of the gods, or mythology or dream analysis is the way of using the mind to know the mind as participating in the works of the mind. Everything, be it mathematics or astronomy or biology or architecture or music or any of the arts, is the works of the mind. The highest art, of course, is the dialectic. That's the art of all arts that we're here to master. The application of it is to create mythology, or to participate in the highest expression of that highest art is dream analysis. Everything else, you can wonder about how that's an expression of the dialectic, how whatever I'm doing right now is an expression of, like whatever you're doing, is an expression of the highest art of the dialectic, mythology, and dream analysis. How am I using what I'm doing now to use the mind to know the mind as participating in the works of mind? How is what I'm doing now following some sort of order or pattern? How does this order and pattern have to be a copy of a model or an expression of a model? How, by my participation in it, am I myself creating my own copy or work of art of that model? How is this the participating in the works of mind? And how, in understanding the order, Apollo, and the wholeness and simplicity and beauty, Aphrodite, how are these two elements that I'm participating in whatever I'm doing a reflection of mind itself? How is this Apollo and Aphrodite a kind of reflection of where they really come together, the dialectic? Can I do a dialectic in my sculpture? Can I do a dialectic in my myth making? Absolutely, that's what it's for. That's what mythology is. And he said the Hellenics do everything in that way. The Hellenics the mark of the Hellenic is to seek excellence in understanding all that is. That's what they seek to achieve in arts, mathematics, astronomy, biology and agriculture, architecture, an understanding of all. What's the all? Mind. Understand the all. Use the mind to know the mind as participating in the works of mind. Let's add quickly, and also to wonder about its cause, the self, because all of that, from the physical, arts, music, mathematics, cooking, as a reflection of the works of mind itself, being, reality, ousia, knowledge, pure justice. So too that is a reflection of what was inherent in its cause or antecedent, the self. But not only are we using understanding to discover the harmony and beauty, Apollo and Aphrodite, of whatever we're doing, Not only in whatever we're doing are we seeing how does this follow the dialectic structure. Not only in whatever we're doing are we asking, how can this be used to benefit? Making it providential, like the dialectic and dream making. But we can also ask, how does all of this as a whole, a beautiful Aphrodite, understandable Apollo, beneficial Hermes, whole, how does all of this wondrous, beautiful, rational, beneficial expression of mind reflect what is more inherent or subsumed and exists in a higher kind of way in self? How am I learning about the self in all of this? That's understanding. Hellenism. And the chorus doesn't like that because they're haterades. They drink in the haterade and they're sniffing their copium vapes. The chorus says, So here we are. So we are here listening to an appeal for a return of the gods of ancient Greece. You sure don't need an argument against that idea. We left those pagan ideas and burnt down their temples and wiped them out because nothing good can follow from worshipping many gods. Didn't you hear Jesus is one God? Who would anyone know which one you should pray to? Prayer. Go ahead and tell me that I'll tell you that all you've got is a bunch of pipe dreams that you call reasoning. No one, see, prayer's dumb, reasoning is good. Burning things down as a part of a death cult, bad. Creating things through the arts, good. It's just that simple. No one can describe what's really going on. That's all you know. No one can know. I don't know, so no one can know. My daddy didn't know, so no one can know. My priest doesn't know, and he told me I can't know, and I believe him because he's the best, and he does skateboarding and guitar. Plays electric guitar in the rock band. Praises Jesus. And the clapping back with some facts is the anti-chorus. You are listening without hearing the reasons for what you reject. And that's all you can do. All you can do is listen without hearing the reasons for what you reject. Try it for once. Give it a go. See if you can at least listen to what's going on. Perhaps you should ask yourself, hey, what is the source of your anger? Why do you scream aloud? Is it really to silence your own doubts and fears? A question we can ask ourselves when we experience a chorus-like counterattack, saying, you can't know you're a small being. Also, you can't understand, just pray, because you're a small being. And you can't be beyond even God, the self, the one or the good, because you're just a small being. And I hate it, and I'm angry, and I want to burn it down. Burn it all down, let God sort it out. When that comes up from others or from within yourself as an echo of your own past, your own blocks. And I gave an example of me reflecting on my own earlier in the text. Recognize it as the counterattack from belief and say, hey, by the way, what's the cause of your anger? Is it because you accepted this same bullshit teaching and you're angry at it, and instead of finding out what it is to address it, you project it onto others and get angry at them? Instead of reflecting on it yourself, you are doing the same thing you're angry about having been done to you to others. Sadism, belief, a lack of midwifery and dream analysis. So why are you really angry and screaming aloud? not to help anyone else. You don't give a shit about what that person thinks. You don't care. Ever tried talking to a Christian? They don't give a fuck about what you have to say. They will shout over you and threaten you. Why? They are trying to silence their own doubts and fears, but they can't. That's why they will never be at rest, always in motion. They will never be free, always limited. They will always be in that state of conflict. Because that's the nature of belief. You can't solve problems with belief only through understanding. But you can project and be a piece of garbage. A murderous, angry piece of garbage who is really trying to silence their own doubts and fears. That's clapping back with facts at the haterade drinkers and the copium smokers. And, which again, it's not a blame game or a punishment game. Not because they're innately evil. That's Zoroastrian bullshit. Us versus them. It's not because it's not a justification to kill them. That's Abrahamic bullshit. It's an object or a puzzle to be solved through reflection and understanding. And by the way, if you can tell a lovely story about what you went through in that kind of reflection and understanding to purify yourself from your false beliefs and perfect your understanding, that's mythology. That's awakening a kinship to dream analysis. And it's through mythology and dream analysis that we can share this way of being with the world and fulfill our purpose as human beings. Thank you very much for joining me. What a banger this book is. All of that was in the book. I didn't say any of it. Not for me. Nothing in my brain is worth talking about. It's just all in the book. It's the logos and mind expressed beautifully. The eternal principles, true for everyone and for always, expressed beautifully, rationally, and simply in this story. This book itself is one of the highest expressions of that very art we've been talking about, mythology. What a banger. Thanks for joining me. Feel free to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow on Twitch. You can join the Discord if you want to get a notification when we go live, or share your work, puzzles, questions, or suggestions for the stream on Discord. There's a link below. If you want to donate to the channel, there's a Buy Me a Coffee link below. I appreciate those who do that. And yeah. Much to wonder about in everything we do, because it's that kind of wondering that is mind. What is it? Using the mind to know the mind as participating in the works of mind. While also keeping an ear out for that chorus, so we can clap back and say, hey, you're just angry because you've got fears and doubts. That's it. Give that up. Because giving that up, the fears and doubts and the false beliefs that underlie it, giving up those false beliefs is the true definition of sacrifice. Have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.